Welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast with your hosts, Joshua Poniatowski and Alex Taylor. Let's talk football.
Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast. My name is Josh Poniatowski, and I am here with Alex Taylor.
What up?
So this week, we're going to talk about Week 11 observations, waiver wire ads, buy low, sell high. But before we do that, Week 12 brings the Bye-Pocalypse. 6 teams are on bye. The Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, Jaguars, Saints, and the Jets. If you need to win this week and you don't have any players on bye, you might have been gifted a free W. Alex, we're well past the excitement of the draft, right? We're in the trenches, Week 12, not looking at very many exciting waiver wire ads, but looking back to the excitement of the draft, do you ever take bye weeks into account for a situation just like this when drafting your players?
Not usually, unless I kind of like come to after like round 5 and I look and I'm like, oh my God, 3 of my top are all in the same bye. You know, especially if like, a lot of people like a good stack. I got a Chase Burrow stack. I mean, this week I'm screwed because I also have one, Falcons player, Drake London. So it's kind of like a little rough, but hey, I'm in first place in that league, so it works out. It's kind of like, you just got to start strong. Everyone's going to lose a couple weeks. You don't plan on going undefeated anyways, so I don't let buys kind of bog me down.
I agree. Yeah, you don't draft around them. Draft around the player that you want and the ADP and getting the guys that fit. All right, so we are going to jump into Week 11 observations and
News of the week.
Ooh, I'm hyped right now.
So we're trying some different transitions. So what's that first observation you got for us, Alex?
So a really weird week for rushing. Saquon led the league with 146 yards. That was on the Thursday night game. But on Sunday, only one player in the whole league eclipsed 100 yards on the ground. That player wasn't even a running back. It was a tight end. Taysom Hill, the tight end who also throws the ball sometimes, who also runs the ball sometimes, just exploded for 138 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns, 8 catches for 50 yards, and went 1 of 2 passing for 18 yards. Then, just to complete the gadget player bingo card, he also threw a pick and had a fumble. My man just hit a lifetime achievement for how many stat boxes you can fill in one game. Josh, as a longtime Hill truther, what's your call on an over/under of 9 fantasy points next week?
So before I give you what I'm thinking, I just want to give you a shout out for having the cojones to start Taysom Hill this week.
I wasn't gonna say it. But I did it.
It was impressive. Okay, I didn't even check your team, and we were just chatting, and I was like, "Holy crap! You went out there out of a random week. You haven't started him at all year long, all season, and just started the man." So, congratulations!
Hey, you want to know what the fab was to get him?
How much was it?
$1.
$1. Okay.
Got me 42 points in a full PPR league. Loving it. Yep.
You probably overpaid too, because you probably could have got him for 0. But
whatever.
It was worth. Yeah, it was worth the whole fab dollar. Absolutely. But going back to your question, so the over under 9 fantasy points. I'm going to take the under this week simply because they're on a bye this week. But
that's what I meant.
Crazy. Yep. Yeah. But next week. I'm going to go with the over. 9 points, honestly, is serviceable for Taysom Hill. I know a lot of people think he's boom or bust, but when we reviewed his consistency grade, right, when we did a consistency grade in the draft, he was actually somewhat consistent when he did start and he did play. They're going up against the Rams, who allow 6 most points to tight ends. And while he's not necessarily a tight end, the Saints won the game, right? That's the important factor. And if they're playing a high-powered Rams offense, they're going to have to do something to keep up because obviously their weapons are not, haven't been great. Kamara has been their only one. So they went out and found a different one and decided to apply him. So I think, he obviously has the potential to bust out and do what he did. I don't think that'll happen every week. But yeah, I think 9 points and 2 weeks from now is somewhat serviceable. Moving over to the Steelers-Baltimore game. Pittsburgh Nation, let's weld. Is that what you say for the Steelers?
I mean, I think that's what they've been doing for centuries. I don't know.
Let's weld, baby. So Steelers literally go to Baltimore. They steal a win. They are 8-2. They just beat the arguable MVP of the year. I know Goff is some discussion in that, a lot of other players, but one of the top Super Bowl favorite teams at home. It was underwhelming fantasy performance across the board. Great Pittsburgh defense, which you've seen all year to control the game. Pickens still Russ's favorite target. Mike Tomlin continues just to look like a genius. But with all that being said, Alex, do you think they're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs like they always do? What are your thoughts on Pittsburgh?
Obviously this is matchup based. We don't know yet. We don't know what their seed is going to be and who they're going to be up against. Yeah. I would say probably no. I think they're good for a win or two. I mean, defense wins you championships, and it's kind of a fun year. I feel like we got really polarizing. We got a couple of teams that have really good defenses. Pittsburgh, Chiefs, Denver's got a really good defense, and then you got a couple teams with like just like insane offenses, like Detroit. So it's kind of I'm just kind of curious to see once we get into that postseason what kind of comes out if the old adage of defense wins championships holds true. AFC is tough. I mean, Chiefs, Ravens, Pittsburgh, Bills. I mean, those top four are going to be like elite, and then you even got like a wild card, like Texans could come in hot there. I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but I think they're good for at least winning one.
Okay. All right, confident win one. I like it.
Well, what you think? You think they fold like always?
Yeah, I think they're just going to flop. Yeah, I do.
Just because you don't like, you don't like Russ or what?
No, I mean, Mike Tomlin's the regular season champ. He has been for years and years, right? Like, he does a great job getting his team to the playoff, winning the games that he needs to win. But for the most part, recently, he hasn't really been able to perform in the playoffs. And that kind of thing lingers on you, right? Think about fantasy football, right? Like, think about all the times that maybe you've made it to the playoffs. There's probably a league that you're in where you're like regular season champ and you make it to the playoffs. And whether it's week 1 or 2 in the playoffs, you always lose. And it does not matter how good your team is. So, I mean, that kind of thing can linger with you, even though that's fantasy football and it's 100% fake. But, that thought process and that mentality,
I got a little inside joke with a buddy in fantasy that I'll make a joke that like you use up your points too early. It's like everyone's got a set amount of points, and if you use it up too early, like if you're too hot in the regular season, you always crash and burn in the playoffs. That's how it goes. So it's like sometimes it's like if I get a win, I'm almost rooting for my players to like the rest of my players not to score because I'm like save those points, we'll need them. Exactly.
I gotcha.
But switching on. I mean, this is a little bit more of a recap from a couple weeks ago. We kind of talked about the Rams' offense now that everyone is finally healthy, and if they would be able to live up to the hype. And, if they'd be able to support everybody, well, Kupp and Puka were wide receivers number 2 and 6 on the week, both cracking 100 yards, both getting a touchdown. Kyren kind of feels like the odd man out as he hasn't had a touchdown in 3 straight weeks, but he actually tied for the lead on rushing yards by a running back on Sunday with 86. That's a callback to that last segment where I said Taysom Hill led the league in running. As a running back, he was tied for the lead with 86. Yeah. And he was efficient, too, averaging 5.7 a pop. But, Josh, the Rams are up against Philly D this week, which has been playing really well lately. Do you think this offense still supports all 3 guys, or do they get kind of bottled up?
Yeah, I mean, the Philly defense is tough. Over the past 3 weeks, they've only allowed teams to score almost 16 points. And on the season, around 18 points. So their defense has been absolutely elite. With that said, Kyren is still seeing, so I went back and looked at the data before Puka and Kupp came back, and then I looked at the data after Puka and Kupp came back. He's still seeing 18 to 20 opportunities a game, which is identical to earlier in the season. The issue is that Puka and Kupp have been stealing red zone opportunities. So the past 3 weeks since they've been back, Kyren has only seen 6 red zone opportunities on the ground. Leading up to that, so that's 2 per game. Leading up to that, weeks 1 through 8, he was leading the league in all running backs in red zone opportunities, averaging almost 5 a game. So his downtick is worrisome in production, but I think there's greener pastures ahead. They can't continue to get away with it, and they can't continue to do that. There's some good matchups that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So I think Kyren's gonna have bounce back. I don't know if it'll be Philly, but I think it'll be the weeks after that when they play a little bit softer defenses. So I'm not too worried about it. The Broncos went out and smoked Atlanta. Like, it wasn't even close. They actually put Michael Penix in at one point of the game because they were getting beat so bad. But as a team, so the Broncos put up 400 yards through the air and on the ground, so a combination. They had 5 touchdowns. The crazy thing about this, like, you would say, man, this sounds like a great performance. But no. Outside of Bo Nix, 4 touchdowns, literally everybody else had a mediocre, at best, fantasy performance. 8 different players got a reception. 5 different players got a touchdown. And 6 different players had more than 2 rushing opportunities. Alex, do you think it's good to start any Broncos player outside of Bo Nix? Like, what do you feel about that whole situation?
No, absolutely not. Last year, Arthur Smith was the fantasy terrorist. This year, it's Sean Payton. This man, in his pressers last week, said that Audric Estime was going to get more carries, earned his reps after getting like 14 touches last week. I'm like, all right, I loaded this man up in my fab. I told my own father to drop Jerry Jeudy to pick him up.
Man.
And now he's calling me, and he's like, what happened there? He's like, don't you do like a fantasy football podcast? And I'm like, I'm sorry, Dad. It's Sean Payton. He lied to everyone. So, no, I do not trust any Bronco, not Sutton, not Javonte. I do like Bo Nix. I think just the nature of, he's kind of taken on that Breeze role where he just spreads the ball around a lot of slant screens, like quick slants, stuff like that. I don't see this as being the type of offense that's just going to focus on 1 or 2 players. So overall, other than Bo Nix, and I don't expect them to score this much week in, week out. This happens in games sometimes where you cross like that threshold, kind of like the Lions against the Jags. At a certain point, everyone stops caring. Like, the offense is like, all right, we're just running around for the fun of it. The defense is like, please let this clock go. So that's basically what happened with Atlanta. So I don't expect the Broncos to just pummel people like this week in, week out. But I do like Bo Nix. He's looking fun. So.
Yeah, Sean Payton, I think he gets kicks out of it because they literally asked him about that situation. They were like, so last week, why did you say those things about Estime? And he was like, well, we got 3 young guys. We're going to try all of them at some point, and we'll see which one is good and which one can perform. It's like, you said absolutely nothing is like a big word salad. You said absolutely nothing, but a bunch of stuff all at the same time. So avoiding Broncos players outside of Bo Nix, of course. I hate the whole situation there. But moving into waiver wire pickups, again, these are guys that are typically available we try to use 50% as the threshold in most leagues. We look at Yahoo, Sleeper, ESPN, kind of a combination of all. So if some guys are a little bit over the cusp, it might just depend on the league that they're in. Jumping into it, though, I got Elijah Moore. So he is only 19% rostered. Listen to this insane data. So over the past 3 weeks, Elijah is averaging almost 10 targets a game. 10 targets a game. If we round it up a little bit. This is ridiculous. Silly number of
a little
targets. A little bit like 0.2. Like 0.2. So it was on the top end of it. Yes, like 0.2. So but the run game has almost been non-existent. Unfortunately, Chubb hasn't looked like the old Chubb. They have a bottom third of the league defense. And Jameis under center is averaging 40 passes a game. And now Njoku is having some injury concerns. They do have a tough schedule coming up, but if you need PPR options with everybody on bye, 10 targets a game you can't really argue with. So I think it's a viable option.
I mean, he's like option number 3 on that passing offense. I mean, for me, and they got a tough schedule coming up. I'll get more on that in a little bit, but to me, I'm probably not diving for him. But one guy I'm liking right now is Jonnu Smith, 54% owned on Yahoo. Veteran tight end hauled in 2 touchdowns in the Dolphins' win over the Raiders. He's been averaging 6.5 targets a game over the last 6 games. Waddle and Tyreek still haven't snapped out of their funk. I mean, Hill had a touchdown to save his day, but other than that, nothing special. The Dolphins are 4-6, but with a pretty easy schedule down the stretch. So I like them to be aggressive, fighting for maybe getting that wild card spot, at least for a couple more weeks until they kind of figure it out. So I think Smith makes for a decent streamer this week in the Bye-Pocalypse if you need a tight end.
Yeah, no, Jonnu Smith, I think the opportunities have been there. Tua has been looking his way more than Tyreek, more than Waddle. I don't know what's going on with those two. Maybe Mike McDaniels is just drawing up scripts to try to win football games and get people open versus trying to force feed their $25 million wide receiver and, Tyreek Hill, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, Jonnu, I like the guy. I got him on my team, so I agree with you. I might be starting him even though I have another tight end. So sticking with the tight end train, Zach Ertz rostered in 46% of the leagues. So of tight ends this year, he's 8th in targets. He's averaging about 5 targets a game in a good offense, right? We know the Commanders can move the ball. They, for first 5 or 6 weeks, all they did was score points. Now, this isn't crazy amazing, but they do play the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are top 10 worst against the tight end position. They've given up the 6th most touchdowns to the position, and we know the Commanders are going to be able to score. So this isn't, again, Zach Ertz isn't I'm excited to play him. Taysom Hill can get me 40. Zach Ertz is not going to get you 40, but he'll have opportunities, might have a touchdown, red zone opportunity, especially playing against the Cowboys, who have looked like the doo-doo Browns. Sneaky fire.
Yeah, I mean, decent little floor for a savvy veteran tight end. I also one thing on Reddit, maybe I'll try to tag it and put it on a Twitter or something for us. But they were just doing, their offensive coordinator, Cliff Clinsbury, formerly the head coach of the Cardinals, and they just did a month-by-month breakdown of his team's scoring. And he just kind of falls apart. I mean, obviously everyone knows, it didn't end well with the Cardinals, but it's kind of we kind of saw that this year with the Commanders. They were insane early on. Everyone's like, whoa, Jan Daniels was just crushing the offensive rookie of the year, rankings. But now it's I don't know, Bo Nix is coming around. We got some other people kind of contending. He's looked a little average lately. So just kind of something to, we'll see what happens.
Well, I wonder
another kind of.
I was gonna say I wonder if that is due to, remember this Kyler script about Call of Duty coming out around mid-season? Yeah. So I wonder if
maybe
Kyler
it's Cliff playing the whole time.
Yeah, it's not Kyler, it's Cliff's fault, right? Because Kyler's been balling, and Call of Duty came out. So
maybe they were just dropping in together the whole time,
so,
and we just didn't know.
Sure.
Another guy I'm looking at, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. The veteran speedster has now popped off twice since being acquired from Buffalo by the Saints. He does have a bye this week, so doesn't really offer that spot start potential that you might be looking for on the waiver wire. But I would imagine that if you wanted him, this is the waiver period where you'll need to do it. He was already getting scooped up a little bit last week, and then he hit you again with it. So I think he's definitely getting scooped up this week. A bit of a gamble as he doesn't get many targets. Only 4 and 3 over the last 2 weeks.
Crazy.
But like Rashid Shaheed earlier in this season, this Saints offense has kind of proved effective at hitting these random deep balls once or twice a game. So he's a real big boomer bust kind of guy option on the waiver wire. Like he obviously his floor is absolutely zero. Like there is definitely a case that he'll go out there and just put up a goose egg for you.
Yeah.
But then he might hit you with just a random 60-yard touchdown bomb. So, at this stage of the game, if you're going through a rough bye week and you just want a wild card, I like it.
Yeah, he's averaging like 40 yards a reception. So he gets 2 of those, you're looking at 80 points and maybe a deep touchdown. So I don't know, he's getting it done. If you're desperation wide receiver situation, that's what the waiver wire is for, right? Guy I'm talking about is Cam Akers. He's rostered in 22% of the league. We talked a little bit about him last week. Aaron Jones is still banged up. The one thing is a little worrisome is he saw a drastic reduction in the role on offense. He only got about 60% of the carries in that game. Akers saw double-digit opportunities in two straight weeks. So they might continue to play this conservatively, not 100% certain. If Jones goes down for any reason, though, this is an easy plug-and-play running back, too, especially with all the buys happening. If for any reason they're like, you know what, we're going to rest them, because Minnesota's been doing good. They've been winning games, so they might not need to roll them out based on, situation. So, yeah, again, has to be if Jones out. If not, you're putting him in there and praying that he gets a touchdown, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm gonna mention Aaron Jones here in a little bit, so we'll kind of dive into that, to be determined. But lastly, just the Las Vegas situation, either Ameer Abdullah or Dylan Laube, I don't even know how you pronounce it. Zamir White and Alexander, huh?
I said that's how you say it now.
Oh yeah, that's from now on. That's how we're saying it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make a trend. Zamir White and Alexander Madison both ended up having to leave the game in Week 11 due to injuries. If both of them are unable to go, these are the only 2 running backs left on the roster there. They're pretty similar build, but he's almost 7 years younger, Dylan, with Laube, Laube, I don't even know. We'll see what happens. This is a dart throw of options, but if you're stuck in a tight spot, there might be some carries there. Something to consider. They are up against the Denver defense this week, so I wouldn't anticipate much. But we've seen a couple running backs, take over the RB rooms this year. So who knows? Maybe he's next.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a running back option if you're in desperate need and both your guys on buys, and both of the starters can't go. If Zamir White can go, though, maybe he'll be out there still on waivers. I don't know what the percentage is, so maybe that. But if they're both out, it could be a dart throw. Give it a shot. All right, we're going to move over to the sell high, buy low trade target section. This is probably going to be one of the last weeks that we potentially do this, simply because a lot of leagues trade deadlines ended this week. I'm in a league where another one is still open. Actually, two leagues I'm in. But so we'll see how the week goes. Me and Alex will talk about it. So this might be our last segment of this. We'll find a way to fill that time, though. Don't you all worry. So who you got, Alex? Who you got for sell high? We'll start there.
We can ramble, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I only got one league that's still open for trades. My other 3 closed up, but it is what it is. So one guy in the sell high category this week is going to be Jeudy. He's one of those players who was drafted as like a late sleeper and possibly just never even got dropped. I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe got picked up with the Jameis news. Who knows? But it just seemed like, they were always due. You could always kind of like make a case for like that why Jeudy might have a good week, and it just never happened. First, Amari left, and you're like, all right, great. Extra targets are coming. And that was a couple weeks of nothing. And then Jameis took over, and they're like, all right, now it's better targets coming. Watson's done, and that never really happened. And now he's finally popped off, and I think you should trade him away. Boom, just like that. You finally get a little bit of taste, trade him away. First off, this was his first game all season topping 11 points in half PPR. So there's no like depth of history to consider. It's like it's a flash in the pan. I'm not buying it. And also, the Browns' schedule is brutal coming up. It's something I talked about with your Elijah Moore. We got Steelers, Broncos, Steelers again, and then Chiefs in the next 4. All top 10 defenses. Listen, I love me some Jameis. He was my smash start last week. I love it. I just think it's going to be a rough stretch for them, and I just don't see a lot of offensive production coming out of them versus those teams over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, we're gonna see how true the Jameis magic is, especially with that 3-week slate with Pittsburgh and the Broncos. Like, that's tough. I know the Chiefs obviously have a great defense too, but man, that's tough. We'll see if there's some magic there. But yeah, I do like that sell high. If somebody's not paying attention to the schedule, this might be the opportunity to get rid of him, even if he's seen 8 to 10 targets a game. So I like that one. I'm going to go running back, and I'm going to go Broncos player, who we spoke about Broncos players before, Javonte Williams. So listen, this isn't like a monster sell high opportunity, right? You maybe will only be able to get maybe a wide receiver 3 out of the mix, like somebody that maybe you could start in your flex spot. But listen, if this week you see I'm immediately going to the teams, and I'm looking to see which players have running backs on bye, and I'm starting a conversation with them. And I'm saying Javonte's playing the Raiders this week. You need a middle-of-the-pack running back, especially if waiver wire is thin, and maybe you can get a little bit of something for him, and maybe you have some wide receivers on bye, right? So this is like a tit-for-tat kind of thing. It's not collusion, even though it sounds like collusion, but it's more of like, you need this as your team. I need this. Let's make a deal and see if we can benefit from it. We talked about why we don't like Broncos players outside of Bo Nix, just because of Sean Payton. So see if you could take advantage of that one game that he had. And, he's had a couple big games as well, especially with the bye week coming up.
Yeah, I got zero faith in Javonte, so just get rid of him now. The man's been middling for 4 straight years now. Like,
yeah,
why? I'm not gonna have any faith in that man in the playoffs on my roster. But we say that in 4 weeks from now, and it's like week 15, and he's just been crushing it. It's like Javonte's a must start, smash start.
No chance, no chance. I would put money on that. Not a chance. I'm trying to see how many, what percentage of leagues he's rostered. Okay, he's still owned in 77%. So people have him on their team and are finding them at least at least valuable enough to not drop him. So you might be able to get something for him. All right, we're going to move over to the buy low section. Again, these are players that maybe have been underperforming, not meeting their, typical fantasy production, and we think you should go out and trade for him. Who you got, Alex?
My man is not hurt. Cam Akers is not taking over his spot, and that's going to be Aaron Jones. Listen, he has had a rough 4-game stretch where he's only been averaging 9.1 points per game in half PPR. I get it. 0 touchdowns over that span, and he just had his worst performance of the year at 4.8 against the Titans. That is why you need to trade for him, because he's due. He's still heavily involved in the offense. 16-plus opportunities for 5 straight games. I like his schedule down the stretch. 5 of the 6 teams are in the bottom half in rushing yards per game given up as a defense. The Vikings are 8-2. They're in the thick of the NFC playoff hunt with their eye on the number 1 seed. They're 1 game back from the Lions. So I don't think there's any chance of them taking their foot off the gas. And I see some big games on the horizon for Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I have liked Aaron Jones from like week 3 on. I'm not going to lie, I gatekeeped him a little bit, and let me share why, because Alex has him in our league, and I honestly just gatekeeped him. He's been a workhorse running back for Minnesota. He's been getting all the opportunities, all the targets. Obviously, we've seen a downtick in that because of some of those injuries, Cam Akers coming to town, but like Alex said, they need to win. They're not in a safe spot. So if Akers isn't getting the job done on the ground, they're going to have to go back to their tried and true. Their workhorse, Aaron Jones. So I love this as a buy low opportunity, especially after 4 games of not performing. I'm going to stick with the running back trend. My guy, Kyren Williams. I talked about Kyren before. We've seen him lose touches in the red zone, moving from 5 a week to only 2 on average the past 3 weeks. They faced a terribly difficult Philly defense, so we might see another lackluster performance. But over the past 3 weeks, he hasn't scored more than 11 fantasy points in PPR. He's been held without a touchdown. If you remember, about 3 weeks ago, we talked about how Kyren scored a touchdown in it was 12 or 15 games. It was some ridiculous number like that. He's been held scoreless over the past 4 weeks from touchdown. So he is definitely due in that standpoint. And he faces New Orleans, Buffalo, San Fran, who's got a pretty solid run defense. But these 3 are much worse than Philly. So I really do think we get bounce back from Kyren. He's just too electric to not own, and a fantasy manager might be discouraged and might be willing to let him go for less than what we really know he's worth.
Yeah, I mean, still had 5.7 per carry on the ground last week. So, it just
efficient.
Puka and Kupp have just been taking all the touchdowns. I mean, he's playing good. He just hasn't been needed as much. So, but that happens. It's how the game. Just depends on the game script. There'll be good. There'll be good weeks. There'll be bad weeks. So I love Kyren down the stretch.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move into the smash start of the week. Because I'm a nice guy and Alex typically gets these wrong. No, I'm kidding. Alex, he typically gets these right. He's going to start us off because he's the OG and the best at smash start of the week. So listen to him.
All right, well, first off, technically, I didn't get to do a recap on my one from 2 weeks ago because Kyren had played in the Monday night game, and technically I didn't get it right. He still averaged 4 carry. He just didn't need any touchdowns. So that was not a good call. Last week, I did deliver again, albeit slightly different stat line than I predicted. Jameis only threw for 2 touchdowns, not the 3 that I called. But he did have an extra 70 yards over my estimation with no picks. So no picks, an extra 70 yards pretty much balances out that extra touchdown that I called. So it's an even. He finished as QB6 on the week. This week, I'm taking my boy B-Rob, Brian Robinson Jr. of the Washington Commanders. Last week was his first game back from a hamstring injury. He had to go up against that tough Philly defense that we've kind of talked about a couple of times. So he only averaged 3.9 per carry, but he did save his fantasy day with a touchdown. I'm a little concerned with how many snaps Eckler's been getting lately. But that was a close game the whole time, and then they were losing. So then they definitely needed a lot of Eckler passing down work. But this week, they get the reeling Dallas Cowboys, who have the second worst run defense in the league. Vegas has the Commanders as a 10-point favorite in this game. I think the Commanders take control early, and they rely on B-Rob the whole second half. He's going to finish the day with 135 all-purpose, plus a score. And I'm going to go a little wild. I'm going to call this a little shot in the dark because I got the magic touch. You can get a 2-point conversion.
A 2-pointer. Wild. I wonder how many 2-point conversions they run in.
If that happens, I might retire.
You're gonna retire the 2-pointer. All right. Well, I do hope it happens, and I don't want you to retire, but I do want that to happen. Honestly, this is like the perfect pick. This is, when I was going through our kind of notes, I was like, oh man, looking at games, I was like, this is a perfect pick. So the Cowboys have been giving up top 3 against running backs, 21 points per week in fantasy through running backs. Like you mentioned, they have the second worst run defense, only behind the Panthers, and they've allowed 170 yards on the ground through the last 3 weeks. 170 yards. Like, that's insane. I think B-Rob's going to feast in this game. 2-point conversion, I don't know, but I definitely see the 135 all-purpose happening. He should just feast. I don't see any other way of putting it, especially against the Cowboys, who are defeated right now and not feeling great. All right, moving into my smash start of the week. He pooped the bed. It was A.J. Brown, so I don't really want to talk about it. He was subpar to his standards. But we're going to be back here in week 13, and I'm going to talk about A.J. Brown because they're playing the Ravens, and I love me some A.J. Brown. But we're moving on. I'm going to follow suit with Alex and pick a layup like he does every week. I'm throwing shade.
Okay.
if Pacheco doesn't play again this week, all right, I know there's been some reports that he might come back, so maybe this could be dead in the water before the game even starts. But I think Kareem Hunt, the Chiefs, gash the Panthers. They have the worst run defense in the league, in the NFL, NCAA, high school football, in literally all of the different divisions. He's going to put up 20 fantasy points. I don't know how, but expect a monster performance out of him. So I don't have touchdowns. I don't have yards, but 20 fantasy points, monster performance. Start him
However he does
confidently. However he does it, he's going to figure it out. He's a smash start of the week. Absolutely.
And then tomorrow we'll get the official news that Pacheco's starting in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Now that I said this, Pacheco is probably writing a tweet right now that's like, oh, my leg is bionic.
I'm ready to rock.
Squatting 450, 500 pounds.
Give me 25 touches.
Yes, for sure. And Kareem Hunt gets cut, actually. They just put Pacheco in and they cut him.
But honestly,
even
if Pacheco is back, the Chiefs might just be crushing the Panthers so much that they just sit him the whole second half. And then Hunt can still probably put up 20 points against the Panthers in the second half alone. So you still might get there.
Yeah, I mean, they might both feast based on, how many opportunities Pacheco gets and if Hunt, is still a part of the game script, which I think it will be.
What about Bryce Young against that defense?
What was that?
What about Bryce Young going against his Chiefs defense?
Oh, man. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. We're going to see the Bryce Young of weeks 1 through 3. I'm looking two picks. Could we have the smash sit of the week? It would be Bryce Young. that would be the one I would sit that man. All right, well that'll do it for us, folks. If you like what you heard, give us a like and subscribe. If not, thanks for hanging out with us. As always, go steal a championship, and we'll see y'all later.
Peace.